Happy Tuesday.
Tuesday night.
Yep. What the heck? Maybe we should just start right now, Todd. How about that?
I think, Stephen, you're driving, so you're the
I'm
host.
driving. I'm driving this car.
I think we can always kick off with gratitude and get
Yeah.
rolling. So, what are
Yeah,
you
let's
grateful
do it.
for tonight?
I'm grateful to have some time outside of downtown LA. I'm grateful to be by the sea in a cute little quaint little town of La Jolla for the week. And I'm grateful that I had enough sense to bring my sweet kitty, my emotional support kitty, with me. And that's what I'm grateful for. How about
Oh,
you?
that's awesome. I am grateful that my partner Sulio, who's Chinese, her mother is here visiting, and her sister-in-law and her niece. Combined, they probably speak a couple of sentences of English. So it's been just a ton of fun getting to know them and just we had a little bit of baseball training, tried to teach them a little bit about how this game works, playing some mahjong together, which has been a lot of fun. And but also in particular with this evening, just grateful for our work together and grateful for you,
Oh,
Stephen. And we talk about it every Saturday when we have the Qicovery meetings, but we've been doing those meetings every Saturday for over 8 months now.
yeah, I'm so grateful for you too. That's something that I think about just about every day, Todd, because yeah, this work that we're doing is very important. It's very important to me. It's important to you. I think it's important to the world. So,
I think you're right.
yeah. Hey, everyone, and welcome. Again, my name is Stephen Washington, and I'm truly honored to have you here today. Tonight's gathering, this is a special edition of Qicovery, specifically designed for anyone who has ever felt emotionally drained, overwhelmed, or lost while trying to support someone they love. Now, if that resonates with you, you're in the right place. We've called this session Boundaries Without Burnout because many of us were never taught how to love without losing ourselves in the process. And that's exactly what we're here to explore today. But before we begin, I want to give you just a little context, a little personal context. So I grew up in a very dysfunctional family, like many of us. And both my parents were alcoholics, and one struggled with mental illness. And from very early on, I was conditioned, I was taught to focus more on the needs of others and not pay so much attention to myself. And any thought of myself and my wants felt like a selfish thing to do. And I did that for a very long time until I couldn't do it anymore. And as we were preparing for this webinar today, I was thinking about a pivotal moment when I set a boundary with my father. It was in the early 2000s. I was in my early 30s. I had just gotten sober. My stepmother, his wife, had just died suddenly. And there was a lot of drinking that week when I was there, and I witnessed it all. And I was just trying to stay sober because I was maybe 6 months into my recovery and things were going well. And I remember my father asking me if I would go to the liquor store to pick up some alcohol for him because he was running low. And I I responded with yes, because that's what I automatically would do. I was just conditioned to just say yes. And I left the room and I stopped and I checked in with myself and I realized that yes wasn't an honest answer. I did not feel comfortable with the idea of going to a liquor store to get alcohol because I felt like it would put me in harm's way. So I went back into the room and I said to my father, no, I'm sorry, I can't go to the liquor store for you. You're going to have to do that yourself or get someone else to do that because I'm newly sober and I don't think it'll be a wise thing for me to do. And that was a very powerful moment for me. And there was a lot of work and thought going into that. And also from that moment on, things that shifted in the relationship. But it's a really important moment for me, and I wanted to share that with all of you. So, again, the work that we are doing here is really important work, and I'm so grateful to be doing it with my colleague Todd. Todd is an amazing individual, and I feel like it's such a blessing that we are here and that we co-created Qicovery together because we both care deeply about people in recovery. There's so many people who are in need, and we want to help people find peace and resilience and connection through movement, mindfulness, and through mindset. One other thing I wanted to mention was a lot of the material that we are going to cover today is from my ebook, How to Love an Addict Without Losing Yourself. So we're going to build a lot. What we're doing today is built upon the foundation of that ebook. And if you haven't explored it yet, we'll share a link with you in the chat shortly. And we'll also revisit it again later as part of your resource toolkit. So I think that kind of sets the stage for what we're going to do. And I'm just going to turn it over to my buddy Todd to take us further into this process.
Awesome. Thank you, Stephen. It's great to be here. Just a little bit more for those of you that are new to the work that we're doing. So, Qicovery, Stephen and I co-created as a way to really introduce what has been the transformative power of Qigong to those in recovery. And Qigong, for those of you that aren't familiar, is really Qi being the life force energy that's all around us, and Gong being skills that you require over a long period of time. And it's been very fundamental in my recovery and in Stephen's recovery and sobriety. And so Qicovery was born last year. As I mentioned earlier, we've been having a Saturday morning session for 8 months and 1 week now. And every Saturday at 10:30 Eastern, 7:30 a.m. Pacific time. And it was designed for those, whether you're recovering from an injury or managing a chronic illness or just seeking relief from the stresses of daily life, as we all are. We believe that Qigong provides tools to support your journey. And our purpose is to help anyone seeking to recover from any addictive behavior, whether it's your cell phone or alcohol or drugs or the PlayStation or K-pop, whatever it is. We've had people that have had all sorts of different things that they're trying to recover from, but also for those that are loved ones of those in recovery, which is really what we're all here doing tonight. We'll share a link a little bit later, and if you haven't had a chance to join our Qicovery community, there's a great online resource where we don't sell, we share a lot of other tools and resources. But as we get into tonight, and we'll have more opportunities for you guys to learn about that work, but I wanted you guys to really just think about a question that is a good way to kick this off. So, Stephen, I'll just start with this. Have you ever given so much to someone that you love that you started to lose yourself in the process? If your answer is yes, you're not alone. In fact, it's more common than we really talk about. Many of us never talk about how to have healthy boundaries. We were taught to be kind, to be helpful, to be forgiving, but not to protect our own energy. So, what I want to do is take a few minutes and break this down piece by piece and thinking about some different components around this. So, first, thinking about helping versus enabling, right? There's a really powerful, sometimes thin line between helping and enabling, right? Helping says that I love you, I see your struggle, and I trust your capacity to grow. Enabling, on the other sense, or on the other hand, says, I love you, I will fix this for you. Again, because I don't trust that you can handle it. So when we enable, we often take on someone else's responsibilities, right? To avoid their discomfort or ours. But here's the catch, right? Enabling often feels like love. It's familiar, it's what we were taught, but in the long run, it keeps both people stuck. The next component is really trying to understand some of the signs of this boundary breakdown, right? So how do we know when boundaries are breaking down? Because it's not always obvious, right? They don't always just snap, right? They often just erode a little bit at a time. There's physical symptoms like exhaustion or tension, right? Sleep disruption. There's emotional signs like resentment, irritability, anxiety, guilt. And there's mental patterns that we have obsessing over the other person or constantly replaying conversations that we've had in our heads, right? Sometimes the breakdown shows up in our language, right? If I don't do it, who will? I just want to keep the peace, right? They're going through so much. I don't want to be one more problem. If any of that sounds familiar to you, that's not a failure, it's awareness. And that's the first step towards change. The next component is what we call the myth of selfishness, right? One of the biggest lies that we've been told, especially those of us in caregiving or supporting roles, is that choosing ourselves is selfish. But let me offer a reframe to that. Self-care is not selfish. It's how love ultimately becomes sustainable, right? You can't pour from an empty cup, right? True love has a rhythm. It gives and it rests and it reaches and it retreats. Sometimes the most loving thing that we can do is say, I trust you to face this, and I trust myself to rest.
Let me just jump in here for a second, Todd, and just say that this truth has saved me more than once. There's a time when I believed that constant giving meant being a good partner, a good family member, a good son, a good brother, a good uncle. But I was really running myself into the ground. I alluded to that earlier. But once I finally created some space for myself, surprisingly enough, I didn't lose connection, but what I gained was more clarity and more peace within myself. And it impacted the way that I move through life and how I move through those relationships.
That's good. Thanks, Stephen. So now think about boundaries on a spectrum, right? So visualize on one side, there's what we would call enmeshment, right? Where your emotions, your thoughts, your actions, they're entangled with somebody else, right? You feel what they feel. You lose sight of where you end and where they begin. Then we move on. This is one of my favorites. Then we move on to avoidance, where you've been hurt so many times that you just shut down. You pull away to protect yourself, but still left feeling alone or disconnected. Healthy boundaries, on the other end, are where you are emotionally available, but you're not responsible for others. You know what's yours and you know what's not. Boundaries aren't rigid walls, though. They're more like filters. They let love in, but they keep the burnout out.
Mhm.
Then let's think about boundaries as energetic agreements. This a critical component of Qigong. So here's another sort of reframe that's helped a lot of our clients. If you think of boundaries as energetic agreements between you and the other people in your life, an energetic agreement says, I will honor my truth. I will not override my needs to avoid conflict. I will create space with kindness, not with punishment. Boundaries become less about control and more about, as Stephen talked about, clarity. Right? When your energy is grounded, your yes comes from your heart, and your no can be a sacred act of love. So let's think of a couple of real life examples now. So ground this in what are probably familiar scenarios for a lot of us. So let's take the example of a parent with an adult child, right? Your adult child is struggling. You've helped them financially, emotionally, even physically over and over, but nothing changes, right? You're exhausted and they're still stuck. A healthy boundary might sound like, I love you and I believe in your ability to handle this. I can't take this on for you, but I'm here to support you emotionally. And let's look at another example of a caregiver for, let's say it's a partner or a friend in recovery. You want to be supportive, but you're doing all of the emotional labor. You feel more like a crisis manager than a loved one. A healthy boundary might be, I want to stay connected, but I need us both to show up for this relationship. let's talk. I can't talk. Let's talk about what that could look like. Right. So it's really opening a conversation. And we've talked about this a couple weeks back with Qicovery about how essential it is to just listen, right? To provide that space to just listen. Then there's the other example of yourself, right? You're saying yes to everything. You're avoiding hard conversations, back to my favorite tool, avoidance. You're numbing out just to cope. A healthy boundary could begin with, what do I need to feel safe and steady today? Where am I abandoning myself to keep the peace? So let's pause here and invite you to just reflect. Feel free to share in the chat or just simply note it for yourself. But where in your life are boundaries the hardest to maintain right now? Children, partners, friends, right? Any answer is a good answer, right? There's no judgment, only seeking for clarity. For me, I am, and Stephen and I come from totally different worlds, literally and figuratively. My issue with a lot of this was less about, I didn't grow up with parents that were alcoholic, they weren't drug addicts. I didn't have that sort of environment. But I've been an entrepreneur most of my life, and I've had a number of employees that were drug addicts, that were alcoholics. And for me, all of this, it was the same thing with my team, with the staff, like really trying to figure out how do I not enable them? How do I help them? And as an employer, sometimes it's very difficult, right? It's very challenging because I'm a big believer that one of my responsibilities as a boss is to create a great place for people to work. Like I'm very conscious of the fact that people have very challenging lives outside. And so what were those things that I could do? So a lot of these for me were less about children's and partners and friends, but sometimes business partners or other employees. So I just really want to take some time just to thank you guys for being with us in this exploration because it is an exploration. We're all trying to figure out how to be the best versions of ourselves and to show up for other people. So now that we've talked about what boundaries are and what they're not, Stephen, let's move into the body and feel what energetic safety truly means.
Yeah, so let's reconnect with our breath and move into a short Qigong practice to ground and protect your energy. So, Qigong, as Todd mentioned earlier, is a ancient Chinese healthcare system that combines flowing movement, standing postures, deep breathing to activate, cultivate, and circulate life force energy. When you take the word Qigong and you break it in half, Qi means energy and breath, Gong means work or skill. So it's a practice of becoming more skillful at managing your energy. And everything is energy. Your physical energy in terms of your body, your emotional energy, your mental energy as well. It's all the same energy, but different manifestations of it. So we're going to do a simple practice tonight that's going to hopefully calm you, regulate you, and for many of you, get you ready for a restful night. So it's going to be a seated practice. So in your chair, I'll just invite you to sit tall, feel your feet on the floor, just giving myself a little bit of a timer, and place your hands on your lap. And you can soften your gaze or close your eyes and just feel your body in this moment. Feel your feet on the floor. Feel your seat in your chair. Feel your spine lengthen long. Allow your shoulders to drop down away from your ears. Allow your heart to open. Tuck your chin slightly so the back of your neck is long and feel your crown of your head lifting up to the sky. Let's take the hands, bring the webbing between your thumbs and index fingers together and place your hands on your belly. And just take some deep breaths into your body. So I invite you to inhale through your nose and feel your abdomen expand. And let's exhale out through the mouth with a sigh. And allow your abdomen to soften. Again, deep breath in and full breath out. Be a witness to your breath. Let's take two more breaths together. And one more breath. And now I want to invite you to bring the palms of your hands together and just rub the palms of your hands briskly. Create some heat in your hands. In Chinese medicine and Qigong, it's said that the hands are great transmitters and receivers of energy. So separate your hands just a few inches and just see if you can feel the energy between your two hands. You might feel a tingling in your hands, a little bit of warmth. That is your qi. Let's take some of that healing energy and apply it to the shoulders, a place where we tend to hold on to a lot of stress. So let's just take one hand, place it on the opposite shoulder, and just squeeze. Using an amount of pressure that's comfortable for you. Take some deep breaths as you do this. Again, inhaling through your nose, exhaling through your mouth, and allow every single exhale to melt away any mental stress that you may be experiencing right now. Good. Let's do the same thing with the other hand on the other shoulder. Good. Now place your hands on your thighs again. And now let's do some gentle movement of the shoulders. So we're going to just draw the shoulders up to the ears and draw the shoulders down. Let's inhale, draw the shoulders to the ears. Exhale, draw them down. And again. Let's do this twice more. One more time. Now let's do some shoulder rolls. So we're going to draw our shoulders forward, draw them up towards the sky, draw them back towards the wall behind you, and then draw them down. Again, draw them forward and up, and back and down. Let's inhale, draw the shoulders forward and up. Exhale, draw them back and down. Now let's go in the opposite direction. So we go down and back, up and forward. Again, down and back, up and forward. One more time. Good. And just relax the shoulders and just notice what you feel. And now let's introduce some gentle movement to the spine. This next exercise is called the wave. I'm going to turn profile so you can see what my body is doing from a different angle. Just going to bend forward, opening the chest, then drop the head, round the spine, and slowly roll up through your spine. Your head is the last thing to lift. Sitting tall, take a deep breath. Exhale, bending forward and rolling up. As you roll up, try to relax your shoulders. Deep breath in Exhale, bending forward. Inhale, rolling up. Let's do this 5 more times. Take your time. Twice more. One more time. And then rolling up, sitting nice and tall. And just pause and just notice what you feel. Good. Now let's just do a gentle flowing movement called gathering the breath. In Chinese medicine, air is the most accessible form of qi that there is. We can go a while without eating or drinking, but we can't go very long without breathing. And the lungs are considered to be the commanders of qi. So we're going to do an exercise where we're just going to breathe deeply, and it has a powerful impact on the body, the mind, and the spirit because it helps us to regulate our nervous system. So we're going to take the arms, we're going to lift them up to their shoulder height, shoulder width in front of you with the palms facing up. And then you bend your elbows, bring your hands towards your face, and then slowly float the arms down. It's like you're gathering the breath and you're bathing yourself in this wonderful energy. Take a deep breath in and exhale. As the arms lift, try to relax your shoulders and allow the hands to be soft. So not too much tension in the hands. Qigong is a practice of letting go with the understanding and a philosophy of less can sometimes, doing less can allow us to gain more. Take a nice deep breath in through your nose. Exhale out through your nose. Let's do this 3 more times. And one last time. And now just allow your hands to rest on your lap. And I invite you to now close your eyes if they're not already closed. And just take some deep breaths in and just notice what you feel. I invite you to tune into your senses and feel the weight of your body pressing down in the chair that you're sitting in. Feeling your feet on the floor, your seat in the chair. Notice if you feel a heaviness in your body or perhaps a lightness. And now I invite you to tune into your sense of hearing and just notice any sounds around you. Aside from the sound of my voice, Notice any other sounds that are in the room with you. And lastly, notice the taste in your mouth. And now let's do a gentle scan of your body to just assess exactly how you're feeling in this moment. So let's start by bringing your awareness to the very top of your head and then slowly scanning down your body. And as you scan your body, just notice any areas of comfort or discomfort. And no need to analyze what you discover, just take note. And if your mind happens to wander while scanning, that's okay. As soon as you notice, just bring your mind and your attention back to the scan of your body. And now I invite you to bring your awareness to your breath. Notice the rising and the falling of your breath. And as you breathe deeply, I invite you to breathe in through your nose and breathe out through your mouth. As you breathe in, imagine that you're drawing in energy within you, whatever it is that you need in order to take better care of yourself. Whatever it is that you need energetically to help you to begin to set loving boundaries with those around you. And as you exhale out through your mouth, imagine letting go of anything that might stand in the way or has historically stood in the way of you doing that. With each breath, see if you can loosen your grip around any self-imposed restrictions. And then lastly, I invite you to envision yourself lovingly and strongly and courageously setting boundaries with love in your relationships. Just envision yourself having the wherewithal to do that. What would that look like? What would that version of you look like and feel like? Just breathe that in. Know that version of yourself is a part of you right now, right here. And now I invite you to again tune into your senses. Feel the weight of your body pressing down. Notice any sounds around you. Notice the taste in your mouth. And gently begin to wiggle your fingers and your toes. And gently open your eyes, coming back to the room, to the space. Beautiful, everyone. Ah, so now let's pass it over to you, Todd, again.
Thank you, Stephen. That was
Mm.
so good. Very relaxing. It's interesting when we do those, the Qigong or even some of the breath work or just sitting in that stillness, how different areas of tension that you weren't paying attention to before seem to show up, like your forehead is scrunched or just carrying that tension. And even the part that we did on the shoulders felt really good, really
Sometimes we
good.
don't realize how much tension we're carrying until we just pause for a moment to just make space for noticing.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So we want to open it up for some Q&A and get a chance for you guys to ask any questions. Before that, we know that today's topic, this idea of setting boundaries, is a challenge. It's a challenge for all of us in a lot of different ways. So we have created a free guide. I'm going to put this link in the chat, and this link here in the chat is access to a whole bunch of resources. Not just that guide. Stephen mentioned the ebook. I think there's a small $10 fee for the ebook. But also there's a link to the Qicovery community that we talked about that you can join us. That's completely free. A lot of other resources. Again, we meet every Saturday to go through anything. Either Stephen or I are leading, usually Stephen leading some Qigong, and then we'll share some relevant video or topic or story. And then we record the beginning and then we stop recording so we can have a time to share and really get a chance to just let our guard down and share. And there's been anything from just crazy laughter to tears in those where we really get a chance to really get to know each other. And I think that the way that we close all of the Qicovery meetings is to remember that you're not alone, right? None of us get through this by ourselves. And the difference between wellness and illness is we, not I, right? We were designed to live life in community. So invite you guys to ask any questions that you have, any insights. There was a couple, Stephen, that some people had written in. I can share those. But if you guys have things that you would like to ask, anything specific to your experience, feel free to just put them in the chat or put them in the Q&A section, and we'll absolutely jump in and give those the priority. But
Yeah.
while we're waiting for those, I just wanted to share a couple of things that have come in recently and some questions because there was a number of people that couldn't make it this evening. It was impossible to find time to fit us or find a schedule that would fit all of the people that wanted to connect literally from around the world. But let me kick off with this one, Stephen. So this one basically asking, how do I set boundaries with someone that I love without feeling like I'm abandoning them? So she says, my sister has been struggling with addiction for years. Every time I try to pull back to protect myself, she tells me I'm the only one she has left. I don't want to abandon her, but I'm exhausted. How do I even begin to set boundaries when it feels like I'm walking away?
That's powerful. I know what that feels like. And I know that setting boundaries can feel enormous initially. And the best way to go about it, in my opinion, is to start small with the boundary setting. And sometimes the setting the small boundaries can feel very impactful. And in the process of learning how to set boundaries, it's just important to have support. have outside support. I know my experience of loving someone who's dealing with addiction or loving someone who's dealing with mental illness, you can often feel like you are that person's only lifeline. And it's so important that you have support. You have someone else that you can talk to outside of that situation to help bolster you. And sometimes when we're setting boundaries, I know for me, I had to practice saying the words that I need to say to someone to set a boundary so that I started to develop some level of muscle memory about it. Because when you're in the moment of that that moment of setting a boundary with someone, you know what you want to say, you know what they're going to say back to you. You want there to be a level of muscle memory so that when you start to feel yourself being dysregulated, meaning your heart starts to race, your breath becomes shallow, your mind becomes foggy, you're going to have those words ready to go. I found that very helpful. And also to know that sometimes that moment of setting a boundary is going to go well and sometimes it won't, and that there's no way to do it perfectly every time. But nothing changes if nothing changes. And you have to start somewhere. So that's what comes to me from the top of my head and from my own experience, and also in coaching other people over the years on setting boundaries with other people. How about you, Todd? How does that land for you? What do you have to?
I think you hit on it. I think that the challenge that we have a lot of times is that feeling that we are abandoning them, which is easy to understand at one level, right? One of these paradigms, the one that I was sharing with you earlier, is this idea of every time that we are confronted with moving forward, we're also confronted with allowing someone else to stay where they are. And that's a tough one sometimes. And I
Yeah.
think it's not abandoning them, it's being true to you, and that those boundaries are, it's why the same thing we talk about all the time, right? Put your oxygen mask on first. Of course, you want to help the baby or whoever is sitting next to you, but if you don't take care of yourself first, you don't have the ability to do that, then it just continues. And in my experience, it becomes so repetitive that every time that you jump in and continue to try to help, but there is no change on their side, it's not abandonment, it's empowerment in a sense of you. And sometimes that's the part that's a challenge because we just keep giving ourselves away all of the time. So I think it's really about becoming a stronger you in that instance. There's another one that somebody wrote in, and again, if you guys have questions, we'll absolutely jump in, or things that you guys want to discuss. We're here for you guys. But I thought this one that somebody wrote in earlier was really very poignant and really gets to the heart of some of this is, what do I do when my loved one gets angry or manipulative when I try to set boundaries? When I told my partner I couldn't keep bailing them out financially, they exploded, accused me of not loving them, brought up everything I've ever done wrong. It shook me. I wanted to stand firm, but I also didn't want to escalate things. How do I handle those moments? So these are just going to get easier, Stephen.
Yeah,
But this is the real deal. This is what it's all about.
it is. It is. And no one likes to be on the receiving end of someone's anger. But here's the deal. Trying to keep the peace, trying to appease someone so that they don't burst into anger is a losing game. It's a losing battle. If you're able to avoid a argument, I think that kind of gives us a false sense of control. If I do this thing, then I will get this result. But that's not guaranteed. It's just so important to begin to prioritize yourself, prioritize your own well-being, love, partnership, relationships with people that mean something to us, that we love, and that they say that they love us should not be full of that kind of energy. There is there's an imbalance there, and trying to avoid conflict is impossible. Life is about conflict. Life is about learning how to navigate conflict and not setting a boundary, not looking after what you need for you to feel okay in the world is not sustainable. It's not sustainable. And I think that setting boundaries and learning how to navigate conflict in that way really facilitates growth and change within ourselves and in our relationships
Mm.
because it's just a part of life. As someone who grew up in very, like I said before, a very dysfunctional family, conflict was something I was always afraid of for most of my life. And I ran away from it as much as I could for as long as I could. And then I realized that conflict is my running away from it was stunting my growth. It was stunting my growth and also the growth of that person. Because if I avoid having those tough conversations, nobody wins, nobody grows, nobody wins. And it's like we say in Qigong, energy is designed to flow freely. And when it doesn't flow, then it becomes stagnant. So a relationship that doesn't deal with conflict, that doesn't have firm boundaries, loving boundaries, it goes against the laws of nature. So bit by bit, it's important to do those things. And like I said, begin small, begin small. What would you have to share?
Yeah, same. I think it's a challenge, especially when there's this, like I'm the same way. Like I've spent my whole life trying to avoid conflict. It hasn't really done me much good, but felt right at the time.
You're an avoidant. I'm more of
Yeah,
an avoidant in terms of attachment styles. You're probably more an avoidant, and I'm definitely a bit more of an anxious.
yeah. And
Yeah.
I think that this question in particular is that they said that they exploded and then accused me of not loving them. And then, of course, the deflection brought up everything I've ever done wrong. And so instead of, they're not taking ownership of it. And of course, there's guilt and shame and the defensiveness being in recovery myself, knowing that side of the equation. And I think sometimes learning how to de-escalate is definitely an art form. There's definitely, and that's where I think that's why this work that we're doing is so important, is to be able to come to a Qicovery on a Saturday, reach out to other people. And that's what's great about the Mighty Network, which is the name of the platform that we're in, is you can connect and reach out to people one-on-one. People have a chance to build some great friendships and great connections with people and really lean on those resources. And again, realizing that you're not in it alone, that there's other people that have been going through that same thing, and there's always ways to learn from them. But I
Yeah.
think that a few things that I've done in the past, or in some cases have been done to me, is I'm not going to allow you to talk to me like that. Is really drawing that line, whatever that looks like. And if you can't change your tone, then you need to leave or I'm going to leave. That really don't continue to be in there. You're not going to try to argue your way into convincing them that they were more wrong than you were in those other times or whatever. And I think it's really everything that you can do to de-escalate it. And then sometimes it's just listening, like we talked about before. It's like really trying to just change the energy or the tone, or, and I've had other people share with me that they'll just do something crazy, right? They just start jumping up and down and spinning around and just being crazy just to break the tone, like just to be super silly or do something that really just changes the energy that's in the room at that time. Because if it escalates, never, there's no good that's going to come from that either way. So I
Yeah.
think as much as you can do to de-escalate that in the moment is essential. And again, that's where I think it's important to have community, to have other people around you that have been through that same situation that can share examples of things that they've done as well.
Absolutely. Another thing that comes to mind is we could, in a situation like that, set the boundary and say, this is what you're asking me to do, I cannot do. In addition to that, sharing what it is that you can, that you are capable of doing. If someone is mad at you because you won't give them money, it's, I cannot give you money. I'm not going to give you money anymore. But what I can do is listen. If there's something that you're going through right now that you're struggling with, I am here to listen. Because often there's something, it's like it's never really that thing that you're arguing about, that you're fighting. There's always something underneath it. So how can you get, like you said, how can you find a way to disarm, change the energy, and just invite a discussion or create space for whatever that underlying need is to be heard and to be addressed. Give space for it.
That's awesome. Yeah, absolutely. This is another challenging question that came in. How do I stop feeling responsible for someone else's choices?
Mm.
My husband has relapsed 3 times in the past year. Each time I wonder what I did wrong. Was
Mhm.
I not supportive enough? Was I too controlling? I keep replaying every conversation. I know logically that it's his path, but I can't stop blaming myself. How do I let go of that?
Wow. What I'm reminded of is in recovery, we often talk about being right-sized and knowing that the world doesn't revolve around us. And I know it's easy to think that something that we said or something that we did made someone do X, Y, or Z. But honestly, no one has the power to do that. No one has the power to do that. People who are struggling with an addiction, they're going to do what they're going to do until they're ready to not do it anymore. And there's nothing that we can say or do that's really going to push them into that. At the end of the day, it has to do with what's happening with them in their brains, because I do believe that addiction is a disease and it's something that is connected to the brain and the body. It's hard initially to accept that, but start to really connect yourself with other people and listen to people when they share their experience, strength, and hope around this, and to ask them how is it that they were able to begin to hang up that hat that they wore whenever they took on that job of taking responsibility for the actions of other people. Just no one else is responsible for the actions that you take. No one. Therefore, you're not responsible for the actions that someone else takes. Let yourself off the hook. Let yourself off of the hook from that. And sometimes letting yourself off of the hook for that happens one moment at a time, one breath at a time. So, can you, for this 1 minute, cut yourself a break? Let yourself off the hook. And eventually, those minutes, 1 minute will turn into 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, an hour, a day.
That's good. I know that we said in the beginning I wasn't supposed to use any bad words, but the term SOL, right? That it stands for stuff, I guess, stuff out of luck, right? There's another version of that I learned a few years ago that's called SOL, or suffering obligations of love. And the idea is that the source of suffering is in the ways that we suffer for other people and in some type of unworkable effort to say, I love you. And I think it's that same sort of thing. And that's the challenge. Like when you really deeply care for somebody, especially if it's a partner, if it's a child, if it's very challenging that way. But sometimes we're not consciously doing it. but we're not helping ourselves, right? Because there's unworkable ways to continue to do that, that when you look back and the same behaviors continue to happen over and over again, like you said, the only person that you can change is you. You're, that's the only thing that you can do. You can't make anybody change as much as we would like to sometimes. And I think for me, it reveals itself in a lot of different ways. And sometimes and that's where I think that for me, the Qigong and the breath work and some of the meditation has been very good, because what that's done for me is to really help me be just a better me. And it's created for me, doing a lot of the Qigong practice and doing a lot of that work has created for me much more of a like early warning system. Like I can start to recognize things when they're coming up, and I've got more tools now to be able to deal with those things. And I think
Yeah.
that it's challenging. All of this is challenging and it's very difficult, and there's no just magic pills. But I would just encourage you guys that check out the book, the guide, right? How to set boundaries without guilt. It's got a lot of this content in there. Stephen's ebook, which is powerful, How to Love an Addict Without Losing Yourself, which is really where a lot of this content has come from. And then really would invite you guys to join us on Saturdays. So you can click that link and sign into that community. All of I guess that's not true. I almost said all of them. There's some of the recordings that are in there so you can get a sense of what it's about. We also have an Instagram page where there's more insights. Stephen does a tremendous job of doing some great posts on there and reels and just more insights. We have a YouTube channel now that is just getting started, where there's more insights and more of the recordings in there, and we'll have a lot more resources to share with you guys. We'll have another one of these Zoom sessions coming up July 29th, I believe. I think I did that
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. And I put all that in the chat.
Fantastic.
Yeah. I just want to thank you all because I think now we're coming to the end of our time together today. Thank you all for showing up. Each and every one of you for showing up. This work, it's not easy. It's not easy, but it's essential. It's essential. And I just want you to all know that you're not alone. And we invite you to continue to move along this journey that you're on and know that you're not alone and that we're here. So, this space that we've created, the practices that we teach, just provide opportunities for you to check in with yourself. Check in with yourself, and because nothing can change without awareness and knowledge. And then from there, you can move from there. So until we see you all again, please remember you can love others without abandoning yourself. So take care, and we hope that we see you all again really soon. Many
Thank you.
blessings.
Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you, Todd. Thank you, brother. Good night, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you being here.
Bye.